recently, the Bruderhof's publishing house, which is called The Plow, they came out with a new book, and I've started reading it. It's actually a new edition of a book that was published some decades ago. But anyways, it's called God's Revolution, and it's it's a collection of writings by the Bruderhof founder called Eberhard Arnold. And it's on how Christians are called to make a new society based on Jesus' teachings. Very worth reading. I just love this gorgeous artwork. It's an Aaron Hansen. It's a detail of an Aaron Hansen painting called, I think it's called, let me just double check. I think it's called Gaze at Dawn. Gaze at Dawn. I love it. It's gorgeous. But I'm actually not really going to be talking about this book in this video. Maybe I can talk about it in some other video in the future. What I do want to talk about is a little phrase from the introduction here. It was written by Stanley Hauerwas. He's a theology professor at the Duke University. And he tries to describe the Bruderhof, and this is what he says. He says, I would think his community, that is Eberhard Arnold's community, is best understood as a form of married monasticism. Married monasticism is the word that jumped out at me. How does life here at the Bruderhof compare to a monastic life? I could probably come up with a really long list of differences, but there actually are a lot of similarities as well. So I'll try to list them and tell you my thoughts on them. So I would say that the first one is probably commitment. As a member of the Bruderhof, I took lifetime vows where I voluntarily committed myself to the service of Christ and church community. I think that commitment is something that lots of people are afraid of, because what if you change your mind in a few years and want to try something else? I like to compare my membership vows to my wedding vows, where I promised faithfulness to Chris till death parts us, through hard times and through joyful times. Without that promise to him, there wouldn't be that assurance that no matter what comes, we're in it together. And the same thing goes for my membership vows. It might sound like a contradiction, but there is something like super liberating about knowing that I'm committed to this specific body of believers, and that come what may, they are committed to me and I'm committed to them. And that kind of forces you to solve any problems, the interpersonal ones or whatever, or disagreements that come in the way. You can only do this because of the shared basis of faith and purpose, if that makes sense. The other things I think that are similar between monastic life and the Bruderhof are the traditional vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And I know I've talked about some of these in my other videos, but I'll just talk about it again. So my vow of poverty means promising to give up all property and to live simply and free from possessions. But on the flip side to that, it means that all my needs are met by the community, so food, clothing, housing, and so forth. My vow of chastity means living a sexually pure life and remaining faithful to Chris in our marriage. But more than that, it also means that all of us, whether single or married, we try our best to relate to each other in a way that respects and honors what is of God in each person. And my vow of obedience means giving myself to Christ and my brothers and sisters here at the Bruderhof, and being willing to serve wherever and however I'm asked. And this part might look like a pretty tall order, because who wants to be told what to do? I sometimes have a really tough time with that, but I found that even if, sometimes I have to gulp when I'm asked to do a different job, and honestly, sometimes it takes me a couple days to, come around and like agree to it or whatever. It's actually what makes my commitment real, and it gives it practical hands and feet. It certainly also just simply keeps things pretty exciting, and if you think about it, obedience is also just a pretty basic part of discipleship. So I will say here that the commitment and dedication of monastics has always inspired me. I'm reminded of it actually daily here where I live at the Mount Community, because it used to be Mount St. Alphonsus, and it was a seminary for the Redemptorist fathers and brothers. So every time I go into our chapel, as you're leaving the chapel, there's these words that are above the door, and they say, "Go ye into all the world." And I think of the hundreds of men who set out from this property to live out their faith and to help others find a faith or encourage them along the way. So our communities have also worked closely with the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal. I always stumble over words. Anyway, so we've had a really wonderful relationship with the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, as well as the Sisters of Life in New York City. And of course, this is all pre-COVID, but we regularly hosted groups of them, which is always a ton of fun. I can remember when I was a little kid, our family hosted Brother Paulus. So if you're watching, Brother Paulus, I remember you. Anyway, all that being said, there's one pretty big difference between monastic life and the Bruderhof, and that is the kids. We have a saying here that goes something like, what's good for the kids is good for the rest of us. Often, us adults make things pretty complicated, like we overanalyze our problems, we hold grudges against other people over like the tiniest things, and we worry about all the terrible things that might happen in the future. We read into motives, what people do or say, and make life difficult for ourselves and for others that way. And we generally, at least I do, spend a lot of time thinking about ourselves. But little kids just naturally aren't like that. They don't worry about what's going to happen tomorrow or the next week or even, honestly, in like half an hour. At least from my experience with Branson and Xander, they will get mad and throw things when they don't get their way, but the next minute, like seriously, they've forgotten whatever it was and they moved on to something else and they never mention it again. Kids are enthused and excited about things that grown-ups just take for granted, like a fresh pile of snow outside, or like icicles hanging on the tree, and eating a warm brownie, and ice cream, because Branson loves ice cream. They like to meet new people, and they don't usually think about the kinds of things that those people have done in their lives. Actually, I think that children see other people as God sees them, at least much more than I do. And they love to sing, and that's one thing that I have definitely found solves a lot of problems. In fact, here is a little parenting tip that I actually learned from, I can't remember who, but somebody was talking about how you can often distract your kid from something that they don't want to do. Like often we want to go outside and play in the snow, and it's sometimes a little bit of work to put the snow pants on or the jacket on. Anyway, and sometimes it helps to just like sing a little song or make up a song about what you're doing. Anyway, I found that works. Okay, so I hope all of you are managing to persevere through this winter. If you're in winter, if you're in summer, enjoy it for us. Persevering through this time of COVID, which yes, is difficult. And in the meantime, I will be a married monastic here. See you all next time.